Okay, everyone, we are live today on the You vs. You Show. This is Todd Cahill, and I am the host of the You vs. You Show, and you're watching us either on Facebook, YouTube, or some other channel. It might be on my podcast. It might be on Instagram. But first of all, we're so glad that you're here today. Notice I'm talking fast because I want to get right into the content, right into the meat potatoes, because we know your time is valuable. But we always want to bring the best speakers and trainers and coaches and practitioners onto this show, You vs. You. And if you don't know, I am the author of the best-selling book, You vs. You, The 12 Ways to Kick Your Own Ass and Win. And really wanting to help you and guide you on that road of how to really win the battle of You vs. You, which right now, as I do this interview today, it is almost July 2020. And I think everyone that's watching this can agree that 2020 has been a huge battle, not only on the outside of us, but probably a huge battle on the inside of each and every one of you that are watching this. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with outside circumstances like COVID-19? And if I have to hear COVID one more time, I hate that word, right? Or Corona. I can't even drink a Corona beer anymore. You know, it's just like, I hate that word. But at the same time, it's been a wonderful year for me individually, personally, because, you know, we just took advantage of every opportunity that we had. And because of that, I've had the utmost pleasure of meeting this next gentleman, which I'm so honored to introduce you to. Now, before he comes on, I met Aaron Berry, actually probably many years ago. I don't probably remember it as much as I probably should, but he was in the same company that I was, and we have a lot of mutual friends. Well, many, many years later, this year, I got a phone call and got on the phone with him and one of his business partners, and I just loved his energy. I loved also his intuitiveness, how smart he was, and just his background. As you're going to hear today, he is NLP certified. He's a master trainer, which is a high level. He could tell you all about that. He has really a thirst and a passion for many, many years for personal growth, personal development. So we're going to dive into that today. And I think a lot of you are going to get a lot out of this interview today with our interviewee today, Aaron Berry from beautiful Southern California, which I really am from, but now I live in Chicago. So Southern California definitely has a piece of my heart. But Aaron, thanks so much for being on the show today. What I want to start off is just a little bit about you and a little bit about your background. Then we'll go ahead and get started into the interview.
Sure thing. Before I do that, I need to re-edify you, my friend, who I'm now working so closely with. It's an honor and a pleasure to be associated with the InsideOut Institute and to be, part of this bigger vision for transforming the planet. So,
thank you.
Just thank you. A little bit about me, my background. So, I came from the school of hard knocks. I came from a poor military family, 5 boys. We've experienced everything from wondering where dinner was going to be to, digging sandcastles in the backyard with spoons. So,
right. That's fun.
High school didn't work for me. I walked out in my junior year. Little background, in middle school, they wanted to put me in the retard. I didn't finish that word on purpose.
We get it, yeah. Mentally handicapped, yep.
Yeah, challenged program, yep. Right? And so they did some testing. And when they did the testing, the next thing you know, next week I'm in the GATE program. And the GATE program, I actually got to express myself and find out a lot more about who I was, right? Well, long story short, when I transitioned to high school, I wasn't supposed to go to high school. I was actually supposed to go to college. And because of my mother's fear of my stature, I'm only 5'3.5". So my mother's fear was that there's no way he's going to be able to function in that environment. Well, what happened is I went into high school and I couldn't get along with the teachers. So my junior year, I ended up walking out, never looked back. I had my motorcycle and my skill set, and I went into the corporate world. I ended up professional management for Caterpillar, Power Plus, and after spending 7 years in the professional world in middle management, I realized that, I've prepared myself for everything that I ever need to do in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just tired of this rat race.
Yeah.
And so I became self-employed. I've been self-employed for the last 20 years now.
Oh, good, good. So how did you get into NLP? Because, I don't think a lot of people know what NLP is. I know for me, I heard a lot about it through a couple of people, but mostly Tony Robbins, who, kind of got into it in the early 20s of his life and didn't even really get certified necessarily, but it worked on him so well that he just started to work on other people. And I think he got kicked out of the class. And here he is, 40 years later, basically doing what he's doing. So tell me a little bit about what NLP is and kind of your introduction to that.
So I come from a very religious background. I'm a Christian man. And I got married to a wonderful woman. And we both have our stuff, or had our stuff to deal with in life, right?
Right.
We had 4 kids, and we're married for 10 years at this point. And the marriage just isn't working. It's not panning out. Mm-hmm. And through my business contacts, I was introduced to a trainer of NLP. Mm-hmm. And, I asked him, what do you do? What is this? I've never even heard of this. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. He says, well, basically, it's the ability to understand conscious language. Mm-hmm. And with that, you're able to understand them in a way that, well, you may have never understood them before. Mm-hmm. Because let's face reality. Every experience that we have comes in through our neurology. We see it, we hear it, we feel it, maybe from the inside or the outside. Mm-hmm. And we have a visceral response. We have a full body experience of every event that we ever experience in our lives. Mm-hmm. So the marriage wasn't going well, and I asked the guy if he would do couples counseling. He said absolutely. Mm-hmm. So in the process, I had a number of that woke my inner mission, my inner calling to be a teacher and to transform first myself. Through that process, I realized through my own personal development that, I'm becoming the better version of myself, and I can probably be what my wife wants me to be. Right. And for the last 10 years of my life being self-employed, I wanted to give her. Okay. Mm-hmm. I come home one evening after a session, and she's kind of upset. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't triggered by what she was giving me. Right. I was able to stand there, and I was able to see her and know for the first time in my life that she is literally unhappy from the inside out, and there's nothing I can do to please her. Right. And so I just gave her words back. I understand that you're not happy. Told me that there's nothing I can do that will ever make you happy. Is that right? She says, yes. I go, wow. She said, yeah. And I put my hands up and I said, you know what? I will never fight with you again. Yeah. Whatever you want, whatever it takes, we'll work it out. Right. Okay. Hey, just real quick, are you on the laptop? Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry? You're breaking up. It's probably my end. Aaron, your Wi-Fi. Yeah, your Wi-Fi. Yeah, I think it is. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Aaron? Todd, I can hear you just a little bit. Okay. Now we're good. Can you hear me now? Yes, I can hear you. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your just okay, so when people show themselves or kind of reveal who they really are, and they're projecting a lot of their feelings onto someone else, or their inability to be happy, but they don't want to get the help, and how does somebody come to that conscious decision to really focus on themselves and not be so concerned about what others around them, kind of how they react to
you, because I think a lot of times people fail in life because they're people pleasers and they want to be liked by everybody. I mean, we see this in social media so much. It's like, I don't have enough comments, I don't have enough engagement, blah 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 blah. It's like, what if we just posted whatever the heck we wanted to, in the reality of, I just want to serve people, I just want to help people, I could care less if I get likes, I could care less if I get comments, but I just want to serve, and whoever likes it great. So how do we get to that point, in your opinion, from your kind of training and all these years that you have? How can we all stand still by ourselves in the fact that we could be happy on our own, and having a wife or having a husband is just really more an accessory to our life? It's just awesome, but it doesn't make our life. It doesn't define who we are. Because I think so many people get defined by their marriage. They get defined by their best friend. They get defined by their inner circle, or who's out of it, who's in it. And it could really ruin their life if someone maybe wants to leave that circle. So in your opinion, what's your perspective of that, or just even from your professional view?
So I'm going to come at that from where I was, because once upon a time, I was defined by that marriage. That was everything that I had. That was everything that I was going to be, and I gave everything that I had to it. And it wasn't until ending that, well, I didn't understand myself. And really, that's the only place that you can come from. And if you don't understand first who you are, there's no way in the world you can expect to communicate with someone outside of you.
Yeah.
So you got to make best friends with that little kid inside of you.
Yep.
Emmanuel talks about this all the time. And so through the process of NLP and the techniques available, you get to become best friends with that little kid inside. And once you do that, all of the things that you used to worry about are never a problem anymore, because you've learned new behaviors.
Yes.
You know, there's where you used to be. And every time you have an experience, if you don't learn a new behavior, or choose to learn a new behavior, you're going to add another pearl onto that string of pearls that will just compound the events in your life. And so the next time you're faced with another life event, you're going to react the same way. And it's going to happen all the time until you can go back into your unconscious and learn a new behavior. And so what happens is it's...
Yeah. So how do we do that? So, I mean, that's amazing stuff. So I want to learn new behaviors. I'm filled with, let's say, anxiety or fear, or I get maybe a trigger. Like you said the word trigger before. So like, we all get triggered from our past. And if we don't know how to rewire our brain to have a better future or a different future, we're always going to be in our past. We're not going to create new experiences. So tell me a little bit about, how can somebody lose the triggers and live with inner peace and have a more compelling future?
So the bottom line is you've got to start with the beginning, and you've got to be vulnerable. Just like you talk about here in your book, right? If you come to an NLP training, we walk you through a process in 5 to 7 days, where we first teach you the conscious use of language. When you learn the conscious use of language, you'll start to realize that the words people are saying have a different meaning to you than they do to the person that are saying them. And once you clear the nominalizations, things that people say that you think mean one thing, they mean something else. And I'll give you the perfect example. Todd, when I say the word love, you get a picture in your mind. And in that picture are the details, the definition of that word love. Your picture is not going to match my picture. And so what happens when you get a guy and a girl together and they fall in love with that picture inside of them of what they think this other person is. And let's say you go on in that relationship and that picture never matches. You're going to become congruent inside with the pictures. The pictures don't match.
Yeah.
And so you need to be able to look or listen to a person's language and understand where they're really coming from. At that point, you can be, as a practitioner, begin to see the picture that they've got in their mind. Once you can literally see another person's point of view, your perspective changes, and it's no longer your problem. It's all about perception.
Yeah, I love that. And we've all kind of been there. I mean, like you said, you've been through divorce. I've been through divorce too. And I'm guessing you're probably in your 20s, obviously, when you got married, just like I was the first time. And how if life is funny, isn't it? It's like you go to school. We're all parented differently. Maybe you grew up in America. Some people might grow up in another country. And it's just kind of, but it is similar though. Like a lot of our lives are similar. You go to school, go to high school, and then some people go on and graduate, and then, college and stuff. And then you fall in love, usually around your 20s. But I didn't even know my first name when I was 21. I mean, meaning I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life. And here I am, got a girl pregnant, was religious, stayed a virgin till 22. And the first girlfriend I've ever had, 3 months later, she's pregnant. Oh, shoot, right?
Been there, did that.
Right. And you're like, okay, well, since I'm a Christian, I better just marry her because that's the right thing to do. Oh, little did I know that it's not just about loving someone. I wasn't even in love at that time. I just knew it for 3 months. So right. So it's just like, I didn't even know who I was until 33. So really, truly. So what do we say to culture? I mean, it's like the culture is, especially if you are religious or grew up Christian, especially in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, like, you got to get married in your 20s and then you have children. And then, but how do we know who we really are subconsciously? I mean, like I'm still learning and I'm 39. And now that I'm married for the second time, I'm such a better husband. I'm not that we haven't had problems, but I'm just way more self-aware. So in the average divorce is 50% divorce rate. So someone's watching this right now that's struggling. Somebody's watching this right now that's going through what me and you went through 5 years ago, 6 years, whatever, and they're frustrated. And what is your opinion? What can someone do to really better get to know themselves, and also maybe be congruent with the right partner, even if they're single? You know what I mean? Like attract that through law of attraction in a way.
So the law of attraction is based off the idea that you can assume something into reality. Mm-hmm. What the mind can conceive, you can achieve.
Right.
Now, that's great. What the mind can conceive, because we all get the pictures in our mind. We see what we want to believe. We can invent the most beautiful picture in the world. But the remainder of that sentence is you can achieve. To achieve that, you have to be willing to look at the things that you never before were willing to look at. You need to look at how you experienced everything in your life. You need to be able to go back and look at those experiences and say, hey, what was the other person saying? What was their body language? Were they leaning into me or were they leaning away? Was I leaning in too far and crowding their space when I should have taken a step back and looked at how they were dealing with things? So it all comes down to being willing to look at a different perspective and get the information necessary to learn that new behavior. Forget society, forget the rules. If you don't become first vulnerable with yourself, there's no way you're ever going to heal.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah. I mean, man, if anyone's watching this is like free therapy sessions. I mean, people pay money for this kind of information with a therapist. And that's what I'm so excited about, your partnership with InsideOut Institute. So tell me a little bit about, and I see our logo in the back, it feels good as the CEO to see the logo there, and definitely took a lot of time to design the heart and the brain and the way that it looks. But tell me about your vision. You've had this experience, you've spoken on stage many times, you are a great public speaker, you have great energy, but what aligned your heart? Because every time that I talk to you about Inside Out, you're very clear on how this is in alignment with your heart. So knowing what you know and all this training that you've had, all these courses that you've been through, all these even coaches that you might have been around all these years, how is our vision aligned with your heart and your perspective? Because that's what I want to hear.
Well, let's get to the bottom of that really fast. So I've known Emmanuel Zavaios for years, and he was just breaking into his power at about the same time that I was. And, watching him and seeing what he was doing, And now knowing the results and how hard he's working, you can only affect a certain number of lives.
Yep.
And even as an NLP trainer, let's say that I only see 3,000 students in my life.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
It's not.
And so, Inside Out has, the body code, emotion code, where it's like a laser scalpel, and you can go in and you can remove the things that are holding you back from making these changes.
Yes.
And then you've got the transformational coaches like yourself and myself who are able to see things in ways that we've been trained to see things, and help people step past that fear and grab on to a new behavior and take a chance on themselves and a chance at life. Well, when I first saw the InsideOut Institute, the first thing was, whoa, that's in direct conflict with my mission. And so I looked at it and I said, what it is that you're not willing to look at is what's going to kill you. And so I said, okay, why did I have that response? And I go, wait a minute. Forget me for a minute. It's not about me. I'm here to transform the planet. I'm here to make a difference. And if I can only see 3,000 students in my lifetime, I'm doing something wrong. If I can do something with the InsideOut Institute, which is a global experience and a global company, and while still in its youth, is transforming the planet, why wouldn't I be aligned with something so powerful?
Absolutely.
That's why I'm here.
Well, let's just talk network marketing. We both come from that world, and I think my biggest frustration, anyone watching this that's in network marketing, is just, oh my gosh, like my jaws always dropped. I didn't like who I was in network marketing because I was so angry, and the reason I was so angry is because I kind of hated people a little bit, because like they wouldn't get on the calls, they wouldn't show up for the meetings. They wouldn't show up for their own transformation. They wouldn't show up for their own healing. They wouldn't show up. But then I realized now it's like, well, it's because they had all this energy, emotional baggage. So not that they didn't want to transform their life, not that they didn't want to be a leader, but they just couldn't get past themselves. They couldn't get past the fact that, they were abused sexually when they were kids. They were mentally abused, verbally abused, physically, all the big stuff, and even all the small stuff. They didn't believe in themselves, their fear of failure, their fear of success. So, and they didn't realize like they could guide themselves and they could step into their own power, but then they could compare themselves. And I can't be like him, or I can't be like her. So it's a perfect combination of like, even when we're in kind of phase 2, which we're already in phase 2, where like, if I'm a client of Inside Out, I'm going to work with an emotion code, body code practitioner, and then they're going to run the numbers and they're going to see everything. And then that practitioner, with my permission, can give that information to you, my leadership coach. And then now you're knowing, okay, where I'm coming from, levels of anxiety, levels of depression, will to live, will to die, anything and everything that's showing up emotionally. And now you're like, oh, okay. And now you can really, truly help me on the conscious side of achieving my dreams and goals. So,
that's right.
And we can scale it all over the world. So I'm obviously super excited about that. So what is it for you that gets you excited about the bigger picture? I think one of the biggest challenges with people in general is they don't know how to think big. The whole mind blown. There's like emojis where like they're mind blown, right? But it's truly mind blowing to be a part of what we're a part of. And the challenge is not a lot of people know about what we're doing. I mean, yes, we're getting written up in USA Today, Yahoo Finance, eventually Forbes, the Forbes articles coming out about us. But like, knowing what you know now, how have you grown even in your own expansion of your vision and what's truly possible on a global level, especially now during COVID and this pandemic, and how people really need both sides of the fence?
So I'm gonna reverse engineer that and go back to the beginning really quick, because we've only got a couple of minutes here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in your own way, you got to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
There's a rule. If there's anything that's in your way, you got to get it out of the way before you can move forward. That's all there is to it. So look, coming where I come from, and especially in the higher levels of training in NLP, we talk about values levels and where people are in their life. there's different cultures that we all come from. And those are the unconscious rules that we live by, regardless of how much work we've done. And so here's the deal. At some point in your life, you had a desire to do something. This isn't motivation. This is desire. And desire leads to a determination. And the determination, I'm going to give you right now permission, and everyone else here listening tonight, to get selfish.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not first selfish enough to learn what it is that's holding you back and develop yourself, how could you ever expect to be able to give something to the world?
Yes.
Let me. I love Jesus, and I don't mean to go here because I know the world, but just as an example, number one, he was first good with himself.
Yes.
He was good with his maker. And because he was good with himself and good with his maker, then he was good enough to give back to the world.
Yep. And it took him 30 years, by the way. You know, that's the thing. I love talking about Jesus because I think he was the greatest leader ever. And you know, even take it the religion part away, it's kind of hard not to. But just the fact that he didn't do much for 30 years, and he kind of was quiet, and he was a carpenter, and he kind of developed himself in only 3 years to build his mission that 2020 years later since his resurrection, which obviously BC AD, like billions of people are Christians. So whether you like it or not, I mean, that's pretty influential 3 years. And I think in going to even what Tony Robbins says, people underestimate what they could do in a year and they overestimate what they could do in a day. You know, so it's like, you know, everyone wants the quick fix now. You know, what do I do now? How do I get some money now? But they don't realize that they can really transform their whole life in a year. And I think even in my personal story, like even, you know, I think it was April something that I had the idea of InsideOut Institute, and then really piggybacked off a lot of great people that we work with. And the idea was born through our mastermind. And that's what Napoleon Hill talks about. Is if you want to be rich, if you want to have a great life, you have to have a mastermind. So we developed a mastermind of people, and we just like, hey, what does this look like? And now here we are 2 months later, and we're already sold out. And now we're going phase 2. We already got people coming in. It's going to be insane. We're going to have our practitioners and coaches making 6 figures, you know, or more a year in the next 6 months, not in 12 months, in 6 months. And everyone's like, you know, what's happening with COVID? And oh my God, you know, Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And it's like, I'm not focused on that. You can't focus on what you can't control. So in our last 3 minutes here, Aaron, I want to leave it to you. I want you to just kind of share whatever is coming to your head right now. And then when you're done, just tell us, I mean, obviously they can follow you right here, Master Aaron Berry on Facebook, and then tell us where you are on Instagram, stuff like that. But what's on your mind right now to kind of close this interview, leave people with a bang here? People are going through a lot, COVID, depression, you know, their businesses are closing down. What can you say to someone?
The first thing I'm going to say is surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Surrender first to the feelings inside of you until you covered it. You know, at age 12, Jesus was in the temples, and he became a threat.
Right.
And then he disappeared.
Yeah.
Well, there's rumors that he went to Asia, and that's where he worked on himself until he was ready to return.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't look at will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking from the inside out.
Yes.
Surrender to the feelings inside of you. I had a client who came to me, and the guy was amazing, right? He had so much going for him. And he started his work with me. And he had 3 sessions to go. He came in, did the first session, got half of what he wanted, and said, oh, I've got enough, and I'm not going to finish my personal development because of, you know, financial reasons and these other things that are going on. And he calls me 2 months later and says, you know, I've got these problems and this and that, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'd really love to help you, but you quit on yourself. You didn't follow through with your commitment. You didn't surrender first to yourself and your feelings. Listen to your heart. do what's right for you. Get selfish enough to fix yourself first. I give you permission.
Yeah.
And then you'll have something that you can give back. So anyway, I told him, I said, hey, look, I'm sorry, but I can't help you until you're ready to help yourself.
Right.
And he goes, you're absolutely right. And I hung up the phone. He called me back 10 minutes later and said, Aaron, you know what? There's no price big enough. I need to fix this now.
Yeah.
And so he comes back in to complete what it was that he had started prior.
Yeah.
And that's when he finally had his breakthrough.
Yep.
Because he finally surrendered to everything that he wasn't willing to look at before. And until you can see a new perspective, you're never going to get the light and hope of change.
I love that. And you're 100% right. And because it is the You versus You show, You versus You show, I forget which battle, but I think it's battle 8 maybe. Yeah, You versus Your promises. So basically what you're saying is most people don't keep their promise to themselves. And
right.
we both experienced it. And if you can't keep your promise to yourself, don't get married, don't have a boyfriend, don't have a girlfriend, don't have kids, don't even get a damn dog, because they're all going to be neglected by you until you can look in the mirror and say, and by the way, don't overpromise either. Just promise what you can, and that's it. And that's why you don't have to worry about what people think of you, because if you can keep the promise to yourself, just like God kept his promise, Jesus, to himself and his Father, he didn't care what anyone else thought. He really didn't. I mean, he did. It didn't matter because he was on his own mission.
That's
and
right.
he wasn't always like, oh my God, do I have enough? I'm Jesus Christ, but do I have enough likes on my Facebook page right now? Okay. He didn't. He just traveled all over. He didn't care where he's going to sleep that night. He didn't even worry about it. So when you're on a mission, it doesn't matter all that other stuff. So I appreciate it. We got to run. I know I'm doing a Q&A for our InsideOut Institute, but guys, definitely, this is Aaron Berry. Reach out to him if you have any questions about what he does. He's definitely not only a trusted client of ours, but he is on the Institute advisory board, and we really trust him. And we thank him so much for his leadership and all that he brings to the table with InsideOut Institute. So with that, Aaron, thanks so much for being on. And then tomorrow at 11:30 a.m., we're coming on here, and I'm going to be interviewing another client, but actually she's a practitioner from Sweden who's also part. We have 8 countries now represented. We just got Trinidad and Tobago today in the Institute. So now I think 8 or 9 countries are representing the Institute already in just 2 months. So we're growing, we're expanding, we're changing the world one client at a time. So Aaron, thanks so much for being on today. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, Todd. Good night.
Good night.